reason you've always stayed in your position. You can tie it back to the cycle. So it says, so you've always sort of stayed in this like confused kind of, you're so familiar with criticizing him that's difficult for you to be able to see him as something other than to be critical of. Right? And so you just like, it's like a soft confrontation and then a validation. So this is very weird, right? You can feel very artificial, it's very new, it's unfamiliar behavior, and so you're sitting back and questioning it. That makes a lot of sense. I would too.
Go back and forth,
yeah.
like over and over and over again. You validate the one who's being soft, you validate why this may not feel trustworthy. It occurred to me, this couple we've been working with forever, we've been doing that for a year now. Yeah, over a year.
Yeah.
He keeps being competent, giving the responses, he's been clean, and she keeps going, I don't believe you, I don't believe you, I don't believe you. And we keep validating why she doesn't feel like she can trust him, and he keeps showing up over and over again. We keep validating that, and she keeps not believing him, and week after week after week.
He makes his best attempt to showing up, which is never enough for her.
Right.
Which honestly probably isn't like amazing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like his best isn't amazing. She's looking for something more amazing, or more perfect before she can give up her betrayal, the pain of her betrayal.
But it's this back and forth.
It's back and forth, yeah.
Over and over and
Sometimes
over.
it takes a long time. Like step 5 can take a long. Step 5 and 6 can take a long
So it's really
time.
back and forth. I was gonna say step 5 and 6 really don't. They're not in isolation. They're really pretty much. It's in tandem. It's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
So would you like explore the distrust or no?
Yeah, I would say that's a part of it for sure. And there's a lot of, she says that there's a lot of, part of the healing is the validity of the distrust. There's a good reason oftentimes why the second partner doesn't distrust. And so not to downplay that. There's good reason why all the things that the partner two isn't buying into, there's a lot, that's real. Because,
There have probably been other exceptions to the pattern where they believed something was changing and it didn't. That makes sense. When the withdrawer, when the pursuer, whatever reason, the withdrawer pursued for a moment or changed the behavior because they just went back off the criticizer, and then they got hopeful, and then it was gone within a week. Or they went to a marriage seminar, and they felt better for a day or two, and then so it's a cycle of hope dashed, and now here we are again. We're in this therapy room. This is new stuff. It sounds good and genuine, but almost sounds too good, and so I don't know if I can actually accept that, because then if I accept it, then I'm much more vulnerable if I accept it, and I don't want to be vulnerable again. So there's a whole history of that. So maybe you can pursue that too. Use some immediacy.
Yeah.
So it seems like in this moment there's a lot of questioning about the truthfulness of what you're hearing, whether you can actually believe this. Seems like that's sort of based on some experience that you might have had in this relationship. So would you like to expand on that? Is there something that you've experienced in this relationship that you bring into this moment now that's keeping you from accepting his? You could say, yeah, he's been an alcoholic, right? He makes all sorts of promises, and so you can unpack that too. Yeah, anything that blocks, right, the acceptance and you can't move from step 6 to step 7 until they start to accept. If they don't accept, you can't move beyond step 6. So they can accept their own and not accept their partners. Okay. All right, and then step 7 is where we facilitate the new interactional sequences and positions that allow the couple to express needs and wants. So it's new interactional sequences and positions based upon, right? So it's like, okay, I get me, I get you, now let's do it. Right? Now let's engage each other within our understanding of one another. Right? And so now we're going to engage each other as me as the withdrawer, as an engager, you as a blamer, as a softener, right? And we're both going to be pursuing, and we're going to both start to work towards meeting each other's unmet attachment needs and longings. And so there's going to be a lot of enactments, right? This is where it's less of you're evocative responding, like you prompt them to respond to you about the other. This is more about them just responding to the other. Right, so you're getting them into the actual dance of acting secure in a new position, right? So they look more securely attached. They do more attachment-based security behaviors. Okay, so the change event is full re-engagement of withdrawer and blamer softening. So the jar engages fully, the blamer completely softens, and now you throw them to the wolves to interact with each other, right? And they're disrupting their positions and their patterns within the cycle. Encourage them to express needs directly and within new patterns. I am tired of numbing out. I want to feel special to you. I want you to hold off on the criticism and quit threatening to leave. Okay, so these are like, they're really starting to enact with each other what they need from each other. Attachment signals are clear and they're able to specify their request in a manner that pulls the spouse towards them rather than pushing them away and maximizes an open response. So when you see them take over in the enactments and they're starting to pull each other close or they're pushing each other away, then you know you've transitioned into step 7. That's when they start to take over the session. And really there's a transition between 6 and 7. You start to move into enactments in 6 when you transition to 7 to see how they do. And sometimes they're not safe, so you're moving back into step 6 until they can soften themselves enough and re-engage themselves enough to move back into step 7. So when you move them to step 7, you do it tentatively, you move them into enactment. If they're able to hold that enactment well without going back to the old cycle, then you give them more stuff to enact, right? And they're saying things like, I never meant to do that, I never meant to hurt you like that, and I can see why you needed me to be there for you, I can see why you needed me. And the other partner's like, well, I can see why you ran away. I can see why you withdrew, because you just didn't, does that make sense? And now they're in this cycle that is giving each other the benefit of the doubt, understanding there's unmet attachment needs, understanding their own, and now they're engaging in their attachment history and their attachment behaviors in the relationship in conversation with one another. Okay? You want to add this one?
Yeah, I think the thing that kind of clicked for me is if you think about like stage, I get confused with those words. Step 3 is where the therapist is really giving them the language around the soft emotions and the hard emotions and like, this is what I think you're feeling and things like that. Step 5 is where they're having their own aha moments around, this is what I have been doing, but they're more tentative about it. Like they're not so sure, but they're starting to find a language around what their own pattern and their own dance has been, right? Step 7 is where it's like they take ownership of it and they have more confidence and they have more of an ability to like own it with more of like a sense of identity around it. And she really talks a lot about that. So like Dr. Fry said, they begin to lead more, therapist steps back. The couple, both sides of the couple starts to feel a lot more safety. They ask, they both feel like they can ask, they both feel like they can receive. There's more flexibility, there's more affiliation. And the other piece too that she talks about that I liked is there's more a sense of identity in each individual member of the couple. In other words, each of them feels sort of a sense of ownership and like, you see a sense of identity, like she uses the word differentiation, which is I deserve to be treated this way because I'm valuable and I'm lovable as a member of this marriage. And so please give me these things. And the other part of the couple says, yeah, you do deserve that. And so there's sort of a sense of like, it's like their identity has been formed around lovability, which is sort of slow in coming that starts to find its way in step 5 where there's less of a sense of identity.
It's also a shift from being wired for war, being wired for love. Goes from 6 to 7, right? Now I'm looking out for your best interest. Your delight is my delight. Your pain is my pain. Rather than me having to defend myself and protect myself in this relationship, which is where the beginning of wired for war distress is. So they come in wired for war. Transitioning them in step 6 and 7 to wired for love.
Yeah, she says here, so I just put that they speak from more confidence, a place of core strength regarding previously disowned attachments. So it's almost like they feel safer. So when we feel safe, we speak of what we want and because we feel safe.
Yeah.
So.
And you're also less active in step 7.
Yeah.
In disrupting their enactments because they typically are awkward in their enactments in step 6 as you transition to step 7, and so and sometimes they'll throw each other zingers like you were talking about, and so you're a little bit more active in blocking the bullets and softening them. But when they move to step 7, they're really, you kind of just let them go, and they do pretty well. They're still on the training wheels. I mean, they're taking the training wheels off, and now they're riding the bike, but they're still a little bit wobbly, but they're doing it. And also, here's a big difference: it's no longer externally motivated; it's internally motivated. So it's not the therapist directing them into a organized interaction. They're actually fluidly moving into that interaction from an implicit longing, right? So their appetite has changed. Does that make sense? Where in step 6, you're kind of orchestrating it a little bit so they can get a feel of what a secure-based cycle looks like and feels like. In step 7, they're really kind of transitioning to doing it on their own with the training wheels off, but they're not really good at it yet. They're not good at it enough to where they can take on hot marriage topics yet, right? But they're just about there, and that's when we move into consolidation.
So is it almost like stage 1 ends with you giving them a reframe, and then stage 2 ends with a reframe kind of coming out of them?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Stage 1 is more therapist-driven. Stage 2 ends up being more them-driven. And they transition in the middle, and that's where they launch into stage 3, is that now they're independent of you, and now they can take all of this awareness and enactment and new experiences and emotion into their world, into their everyday problems that they deal with in the relationship. Yeah. And if they're meeting each other's unmet attachment needs, then all the other issues take care of themselves. Right? Sex tends to take care of itself. Everything else, at least sex is just sex then. And it's no longer just a symptomology of unmet attachment needs. So you take away that layer and everything's no longer compounded. It is just what it is. And then they have more ability to deal with it, which is the final consolidation thing. So we'll go with the consolidation just really quick, okay? Because this is where it's really easy. Once you get a consolidation, therapy's almost done, and they're doing pretty good. You facilitate the emergence of new solutions to old relationship problems. This is where they can handle old relationship problems. So if they came in at the beginning and they said, we're here to talk about our sexual relationship, now they're at the stage where they can talk about that without it threatening their unmet attachment needs or threatening their attachment needs. Changes in previous steps now have a direct impact on the couple's ability to problem solve and cooperate as partners in everyday life. And issues become much simpler when they do not evoke attachment insecurities. Talking about that compounded distress. Power struggles and battles over self or relationship. So the counselor's job is to monitor and support the secure cycle while the couple sorts through old problems in and out of session. And sometimes a couple relapse outside of session, they'll come back in, and then you're back into step 6, and then you move them back into step 7. So you're going between stage 2 and stage 3, right? Because they're not going to just go step 6 into step 7 and like be perfect. Because they're likely going to relapse more at home than they're going to relapse in front of you. Because just your presence and the safety of the environment keeps them from, like things get hot when you feel all the horizontal stressors, and that you're not feeling those in the therapy room. So, okay, and then step 9 is consolidation of new, more responsive positions. Both partners now take in interactions and integration of the changes made in therapy into the everyday life of the relationship. So this is where they start talking about like how all this is working. They can give you examples of like we were out and this happened, and rather than doing our own cycle, we did this instead, right? And that worked really great for us, and we were able to bypass the problems that we normally be into. And we had this argument, and we were over it within 2 hours instead of it going 3 weeks. Because I realized that I was withdrawing, and I was threatening my wife's attachment need for protection, and I was doing it, so they're able to talk about it. Identify and support healthy, constructive patterns of interaction, construct an overview of the therapy process. So this is a looking back about what was therapeutic about therapy, right? So this is the real part of consolidation. So we talked about like experiential, then consolidation, experience, consolidation, right? And so now we're going back up into the head, and we're making sense of the entire experience to solidify the experience. Termination issues are addressed, such as expression of fears as to what will happen to the relationship without the therapy sessions, what to do if they experience a relapse. Okay? And then we're done. Then they're fixed. So here's another overview. Stage 1, de-escalation, assessment. Identify negative cycle attachment issues. Secondary cycle, right? They access underlying primary attachment emotions and unmet attachment needs. Frame the problem cycle, attachment needs and fears. Step 4, stage 2, access implicit primary needs, fears, sense of self. Step 6, promote acceptance by other, expand the dance. Step 7, restructure open and responsive emotional engagement. This is where this is transition from starting enactments into deep enactments with each other. And then stage 3 is consolidation, enact new positions and cycles, shape new stories of problems and repairs, and then support the couple to shape new solutions, and then you're done. Yes?
for this whole thing, what's the average amount of